So it's pouring balls. When the weather's like that, there's only one thing to do. And I got some goodies from Hog Farmer. Crazy stuff. Cool stuff, unique stuff. So it's raining. Let's talk tackle. Alright guys, before we get started, I want to grow the channel. I want to show you more content, and in order for me to do that, I need you to go down into that corner down there and hit the subscribe and the like button, because we're going to show you some cool tackle tips, some cool tackle reviews, and talk about how unique some of these baits from Hog Farmer are. So hit that button and let's get started. So like I said, I got some cool stuff from Hog Farmer. Why do I like the Hog Farmer stuff? Well, there's one real simple reason. There's a lot of bait companies out there, but there's only some that go unique, that go R&D, that do some kind of crazy outside the box thinking. And that's what a lot of this Hog Farmer stuff does. Some of it, not so great. Some of it, very great. And that's really the key when it comes to playing with baits, is you don't know what's going to work where. Some stuff works down here, some stuff doesn't, some stuff works up towards the TVA, some stuff works up north. Like, that's the trick. A lot of it's pretty much cross-applicable, but there's some cool stuff in here with some real cool applications, and you can do a lot of different stuff with it, and that's what's important. So let's go through what I got. First, I got two different kinds of underspins. You can see them right here. So what makes these different from your standard underspin? Well, let's start with the traditional underspin. First of all, I got two different ones of these. You can see right there, there's a resin head in there. Guess what that means? It's weightless. So this is a weightless underspin. This is something you can throw super shallow. The only weight that's going to be on there is whatever the blade and the hook weighs, isn't that much, and then whatever bait you put on there weighs. So you can kind of slow roll stuff, get it down to 1, 2, 3 foot. It's the only kind of underspin that you can do that with. I also have some with a weighted head. Other unique aspect about these underspins from Hog Farmer is, you can see right there, they have a man hook. A man hook. So it's a bigger hook. It's meant for our bigger fish that we're dealing with here in Florida, TVA, anywhere where you got bigger fish. It's made in that finesse sort of vein. Underspin, pretty finesse, known on Lanier, known on a lot of those spotted bass lakes, but it's got a hammer hook on it so you can hook up with some big fish and use it in some different applications. Like I said, I got the resin one and I got one with a heavier head. Here's the other one that I got. It's almost like a mini A-rig. Let's crack it out of the package and take a look here. Once again, same concept, heavier hook. This one has the resin head on it, but what's cool is you have 3 blades. It's almost like a micro finesse A-rig, I guess. Another nice part is these are flexible. It's a flexible wire, so you're gonna get some bend and you're gonna get some wire vibration from this bait. Once again, resin head and weighted head, and that beefy hook, which is key. That's actually really cool. That thing is gonna look sick in the water. One thing that I love to throw that you can't always find the right kind of is an A-rig. So this is one from Hog Farmer, super duper heavy wire. Listen to it jangle. Bunch of blades on there. I like them with the blades because I'm usually throwing them for suspended fish, so it rises up in the water column. Plus, A-rigs seem to be kind of like a windy, nasty day bait. Dude, the nastier it is, it's almost like spinnerbait weather. Nastier it is, cloudier it is, the better time it is to throw that thing. So A-rig, what sets this one apart and what really stands out for me, since I'm catching some pretty big fish offshore, is the hardware is super duper heavy. And those freaking arms are super duper heavy. And when you have an 8-pounder going like that on it, that stuff makes a difference. I also have this guy here, which is a gigantic version. Freaking gigantic. Same aspects though. Super heavy duty. Wow, good talking. Super heavy duty terminal tackle clips. Super heavy duty arms. But A-rig, I don't throw it that much during the summer, but when it comes to the pre-spawn and when those fish are staging up, whether it's on ledges, breaks, shell bars and that, and they tend to suspend, even when they're on the bottom too, but it seems magical when the water's pretty cold and they're suspending. You get up that A-rig and it's the only thing they will bite. And I like this one. Wow, that thing's crazy. That's a lot of blade action. This is another interesting setup. You guys know I like to throw really big swim baits, like the GZ swim bait from Gambler, or really big hollow bodies. Once again, resin head. Let's get one out real quick. Resin head to an offset shank hook that looks like a 5 or a 6/0. You can put a pretty beefy swim bait on there. You're getting that weedless head, that aerodynamic or hydrodynamic head, but at the same time, you're not adding any weight, so you can run that bait a few inches, maybe a foot or two below the surface. Great for those pre-spawn fish or those summer fish when they're hanging out in those shallower grass beds and you just want to tick it with the swim bait. You want a weedless presentation, but that resin head's pretty freaking cool and it keeps it running true. None of that wobbliness. You get all the action from the swim bait you can get. This is definitely something I need to try. This is the Hog Farmer Epitome Swim Jig, or Epitome, who knows. Let's rip it open and take a look. Now you'll say immediately it looks like a standard swim jig, but it doesn't, does it? Well, what's kind of interesting with this is the weight is set backward, almost behind the skirt, actually behind the skirt. Once again, beefy hook. Hog Farmer's known for its beefy stuff because it comes out of around the Chickamauga area. They're catching gigantic fish, dude. 40-pound bags, like a lot of them. So the weight is behind the head with that heavier hook. What that does is when you hook up with that fish, instead of having that head forward, bonking on the fish's mouth, trying to knock itself out sometimes, it sets it back. So you have more of a presentation that sort of sinks backwards or sinks downwards instead of darting down. And it also avoids knocking that hook out of the fish's mouth. Epitome swim jig. It's kind of neat. I haven't tried it yet. I got to try this thing. One thing I am going to note that I'll probably do, you can see the brush guard's pretty darn long even though it's got a big hook on it. I'm going to probably cut that brush guard down a little bit because when you're fishing a swim jig, it's a reaction bite, or it's almost like fishing a crankbait four-wheel drive. So they're going to kind of swipe at it and grab it, and I don't want all of that blocking that hook. I'll probably take it down to like right there, and I'll be ready to rock. Who doesn't like a bladed swim jig? This thing looks like a freaking musky bait, dude. But when you're targeting big fish, I'm a strong believer that big baits catch any range of fish, especially the big ones. So basically, this is your bladed swim jig. I think this is a 1 ounce version. You always want to remember with these kind of baits, they're generally kind of designed for ledges. That's where their background is. A lot of this Hog Farmer stuff is ledge fishing, Chickamauga, TVA. So you want to keep it on the bottom. So you're going to run a little bit heavier than you normally would run because you do want to be bonking the bottom. But that doesn't mean you can't apply it in other situations, in grass and that. But for me personally, I'm going to be fishing like shells, sand flats and that. I want it near the bottom and kind of clunk, clunk, clunking on the bottom. But basically a bladed swim jig makes this real unique. The hair. Lots and lots of hair. Hair and feathers. I don't know if I'd go quite this big. Personally, I'd probably cut this joker down to about right there. You got the hook. Once again, super beefy hook. One trick with this is it is a reaction style bait, but it does have that super beef hook. You want to make sure you're running it on the right equipment to set that hook. You know, instead of what I normally throw this on, which would be like a 7-foot medium heavy, kind of like a moderate tip to it, probably with 12-pound fluorocarbon, I'd probably put this thing on like 15-pound test, more on my swim bait rod, my hollow body rod or my Big Easy rod, like a 7'6" heavy, but with a little bit softer tip and a little bit heavier line, just so I can bury that hook right when I finally get a bite on it. But what's really cool about this, and this is kind of unique, you see they're not over blading the bait. The goal is to keep the bait down there. So if you put a gigantic blade on it, it's going to rise it up, and really it's going to disperse what I think is too much water. It's like throwing a 6XD when the fish aren't very active. So that smaller blade, it puts off enough vibration, so it's still, you know, bladed bait style, but you're not over blading the bait and you're not getting too much rise out of the bait. You can keep it near the bottom where it needs to be. I don't want to let the secret out on this, but this is seriously my favorite Hog Farmer bait. By far, when fishing ledges, when fishing offshore, this joker right here, it's basically a scrounger head hair jig. Let me get it out for you real quick. This thing smashes them. You're not going to get a lot of bites, I'll tell you that right off the bat. But when you do get bit, it's going to be big. And I think I've only caught fish over 6 pounds on this thing. That's the big one, before the storm. That might be the big one on the day right there. It's a beast, dude. Basically it rises a little bit. It's a great way to target suspended fish because that big old bill on that scrounger is going to wobble just like a crankbait. But like you saw, I think in the FLW, Jason Labbert loves throwing a scrounger jerky J setup. This does the exact same thing. I don't put a trailer on it. I'll just throw it naked like that. I might, if they're short striking it, cut a little bit off the tail, but really I want a big, bulky, hairy presentation, 1980 style, nice, bulky, and hairy. Yeah, that's for you guys. That bulky presentation, and that really acts as my trailer. Those feathers, That's my soft plastic. And what's really cool about this is if you get suspended fish in the winter and they're really hard bait oriented, which is an experience I've had multiple times, this joker slaughters them. You can ride it up. You kind of got to get the feel for how you're riding it up based upon your retrieve speed, based upon the weight of the bait that you're using. Generally, in 15 to 25 feet of water, I'll use either a 3/4 if I'm trying to ride it way up, or a 1 ounce bait. That 1 ounce bait is maybe a foot or two off the bottom when I'm reeling at a pretty decent pace. That 3/4 is when those fish are up in the water column, say 10, 12 foot. So that kind of gives you an idea of how to weight them. But this thing, dude, it catches giants. Once again, has the hook to catch giants. But for some reason, they chow on this thing, dude. Chow on it. I got one more bait for you, but I think I stashed it somewhere. Actually, I got multiple baits, but I got one more type of bait that I want to show you, but I think I stashed it, so I got to go find it. I'm back. So the general premise of today's story is anything's better with hair, right? How about that? What is it, you might ask? It's basically a shaky head with hair. Weedless, snagless, twist lock. Let me get out of the bag and show you real quick. Bro, 100% credit goes out to Bass Quest for telling me about these. Caleb, super cool dude, super bait enthusiast. This is basically a shaky head, a football, semi-football style, but a shaky head style jig with one of the most beautiful hair ties that I've ever freaking seen. And look at all those little strands, dude, sick. So we've been on a dragging bite. I've never tried this thing. I've seen it work. Caleb made it work when we were up on Huron. And he even caught smallies on it. So if you can catch smallies on it, you can catch my largemouth on it. But once again, just very creative, dude. You don't have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to baits or rigs or lures or terminal tackle, but you have to do something a little bit different. And this marries two awesome concepts: the shaky head, super finesse, and the hair jig. Now, how can you fish it? Well, I'm talking about dragging it because my fish have been towards the bottom. But one thing I'm really excited to do with this thing is to stroke it. And I'm not talking about stroking it. I'm talking about stroking it. When I say stroking it, to get back to reality, is putting a plastic on there and stroking it just like a jig. So what that does is you pop it up on slack line like that, and those fish that are suspended, or fish that are maybe down towards the bottom but not eating a slow, super dragged, finessey approach, they'll eat it based on the reaction. So you marry those concepts of the hair jig, targeting a little more finesse, or a little more suspended fish, I guess you'd say, and that finesse concept of the shaky head, and you can do a lot with it. Stroking it, dragging it. I bet you can even swim it too. Pretty sick, huh? So yes, that was an unboxing, but I hope you enjoyed it, because I cannot wait to get out there and play with these things because they're going to be absolutely sick. So, Hog Farmer, I'll throw some links to all the products in the description box. They're all at Tackle Warehouse. You can check them out there, get more specs, details, the different weights, different colors, etc., etc. But I want to get these things out there and try them because they're unique, man. And little nuanced bait tweaks are the things that get us more bites and bigger bites when those fish have seen so many presentations. And just to be perfectly honest, these really apply to the fishing that I'm doing, that offshore structure, ledge, shell, trees. Fun. So I think I'm going to get some big bites on them. Make sure you subscribe and always support real fishing. I like to bring you kind of unique content, stuff that's real. We don't BS around. So throw me some love and hit the subscribe button. Tell your buddies about it. Hit that like button. And we will see you next time.